It was never promised the life here on earth would be easy, but let's go on this journey together. You're listening to From Hurt to Hope. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the From Hurt to Hope podcast. So excited that you are here. We're going to be starting things off a little bit different during this episode. I want you to hear from our guest in her words before we even get started. But let me just say, not only is this guest an amazing person, but she's also my big sister, Elisa Brown. Alongside of her husband, Andrew, they founded Old Soul Woodworking in Memorable, Ohio. So go ahead and take a listen to Elisa's story about how she went from hurt to hope.
When I was a young girl, I dreamed of owning my own floral shop. I distinctly remember picturing what this shop would look like, how amazing the surrounding flowers would smell, and the desire to make beautiful creations on a daily basis. I loved going to Henry's flower shop with my mom as I admired the bouquets and the coolers and the ribbon wall that painted a spectacular ribbon of color on the wall above their workbench. I watched with awe as the ladies in the shop sculpted flowers and promptly went home to make my dandelion bouquets. I've always loved flowers. I've always been creative. I've always loved creating beautiful things. But for some reason, the transparency of this dream was muted over the years. And, like many other people, I found myself on a different occupational track. Seemingly overnight, I found myself a high school graduate with no idea of what I wanted to do in life. The only thing I did know was that I was going to college with Andrew. For what? I didn't know. So I went to college as a biology pre-med major, based on the suggestion of my parents, and quickly was funneled into classes that predetermined the subsequent 4 years of my life. I only remember a few classes that I truly enjoyed in college, and they were all art and psychology classes. One semester, at the end of an art course, I had a professor take me aside and inquire about my future plans. She was overwhelmingly complimentary. She asked to use my portfolio pieces as examples for future students and told me I should consider a creative occupation as an option. My response to that conversation was a little chuckle and many thanks. But on the inside, I thought to myself that was a ridiculous suggestion, as I was much too far into my current major, and art majors have such a hard time finding a job. So I continued on. I worked exceptionally hard. I graduated summa cum laude with a major that I was able to do, but not one that I wanted to do, on my way for graduate studies to be a physician assistant. Then our monies ran short. Andrew and I simply could not be in graduate programs at the same time. We did not want to take out loans for the cost of living, so I worked for a few years while Andrew finished school. Then it was my turn to go back. But those years away made it critically obvious that I didn't want to go into the medical field just because I could. But I still didn't know what I wanted to do. At this point, I did what every normal person does, maybe, I'm not sure. And I started Googling graduate programs. I found one that seemed fascinating to me and aligned with my interest in psychology, so I decided to go for it, eventually leaving graduate school with a degree in school counseling. A profession that checked many boxes of my requirements, a profession that allowed me the privilege of working with students for the last 10 years, especially those in need of most love and support. School counseling was an amazing profession, and the students I worked with over those years forever changed my heart. I have such an appreciation for the resilience of children and their perspective of life guided by the tears spilled during those countless hours of conversation. And I did all of that I could for those students that I served until I couldn't anymore because I cared too deeply for those kids, and it started to take a toll on my own life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. So excited to have you here, and I'm so excited to have my sister with me today. So you've heard me reference her a few times in previous episodes, and she definitely has stories to share that I think you guys will take to heart, and they'll mean something to you. So everybody just got a chance to hear about your journey and how things started out, but let's catch up. And what is your current life like? Who do you live with, and what's your day-to-day look like right now?
I am a happy mama. I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Andrew. So you heard his name mentioned in my story. We have 2 little boys. We have Lucas and Mason, and they are 5 and 8.
So obviously we've known each other our whole lives, but people don't know that. So I mean, you've always just been my big sister, always. You've been a part of my life my entire life, and that's the only thing that I've ever known. But growing up, it always looked like you had everything completely planned out. And I was really surprised at the time when you first mentioned a couple years ago about having this dream to have a flower shop. I never heard that dream growing up. So let's just start there. What do you think it was that changed that made you start thinking that that wasn't a viable option for a career?
Well, I think when I was growing up, that just seemed like it was too far of a dream, right? So it wasn't something that could be a reality, something that would be a stable future, something that it wasn't really talked about in our home, like an entrepreneurial spirit. It was more the go to college, get a traditional job, especially in the medical field, because there's always jobs in the medical field. And so that was just kind of, something I enjoyed doing, but I just didn't think it was realistic. And I never had any like role models or mentors in my life that owned businesses or that I could see truly enjoying their day-to-day occupations. So I guess I just really thought I needed to go down the same path that was kind of prescribed for everybody. So it just really faded. And it's kind of sad to think about, you have all these things that you enjoy when you're younger, and then society and expectations and, societal expectations, personal expectations, all those things just kind of gear you and direct you into a different way. And I think that we need to be a little bit more in tune to what we're doing when we're younger, because I think that really tells us what we're passionate about and what our hobbies are. We'll just pay attention to that.
But we're sitting here now in what is your dream come true, but it's been a long road to get here. So you have always had this dream in your back pocket, like you said, but you just recently took one of the biggest jumps in your entire probably adult life that
my whole life, really. It's huge, and I'll probably tear up at some point because it is so fresh and new. But let me back up. So I told you my story, and I told you that I graduated, with a master's degree in counseling. And I want to say, like, I absolutely adored those kids that I worked with for all those years. And I got so much satisfaction and helped so many kids. And I think that was a necessary part of my journey. And I think that's part of the beauty with God, is that he leads you down different avenues, but you're going to learn something and take something from each one as you're kind of, journeying along. So it's just kind of a piece of the puzzle. So I do want to say, like, I absolutely love those kids. And that was part of the problem, is that I couldn't turn it off at night. Like, the kids, the abuse, the things that were going on, the stress, it really started to take its toll on me. And that's how we got into all of this. I was so stressed out at work, so stressed out, couldn't sleep, was losing my hair, had ulcers, like making myself sick. I mean, Nicole is my sister, and talked to her every single day, and she knew how stressed out I was. And it was not because of the kids, but more of what was happening to the kids. And I cared too much and too deeply and couldn't turn it off. So it really, really took a physical toll on me.
And how many years were you a school counselor?
10 years.
10 years.
So I started out in inner city, Canton, Ohio, high poverty, high violence. Absolutely loved it. Andrew didn't like me going to work every single day because there was, weapons and violence and drugs and all kinds of things going on in those schools. But those kids needed somebody to advocate for them and to love on them. So I loved it so much. After that, we moved back home, and I did a career tech center. Love that. Went to Edison. Love that again. But it just eventually started to take its toll. And when I was so stressed, my outlet was to go out in the garage with Andrew and build. And I have always, forever, loved to give meaningful gifts and create and paint and just do things like that. But I never thought that they could manifest into something that could be sustaining and into an occupation. It was more of, okay, that's just a hobby, or I can just do that on the side, or that's just something I do for stress relief. But I was so stressed out at work that I had to do something in the evening to turn off my brain and really to turn off work, because I would pull out whatever it was that I had to work on, recommendations or paperwork or whatever, and I would type away all night long and I would not sleep. So we got out in the garage and started building, and Andrew really started working on his woodworking skills, and I was painting, and we would talk and we would just relax. And it was so therapeutic. And we started with doing craft shows. So I was still a full-time counselor, and we started doing craft shows and just taking our goods and having all of those fears about, like, are people even going to like our stuff? You know, is it going to be like we go and we do all this and we're not going to sell anything? And you really have that imposter syndrome as you're going. And I'm thinking the whole time, like, what am I doing? Andrew's a physical therapist. I'm a school counselor. Like, what the heck are we doing at craft shows? Like, this is so crazy. So there was a lot of different emotions that, you know, we went through as we started our business journey, but I think that's a conversation for another time. But it really grew and blossomed over the last 4 or 5 years. And what started out as just a release, something that we enjoy doing, and we looked forward to every night going out and working in the garage as opposed to being on our phones or watching Netflix or whatever, and grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And now we are sitting here in our brick and mortar store that has been open for a year. We're working on an expansion. Like, I can't even believe like how this all unfolded. And I think that there's so many God moments along the way that really were pushing me in this direction. Counseling served its time and it changed my heart and it gave me such a good perspective on life. But if I look back and I try to gather what God was trying to tell me along the line, like, I feel like he inserted hints along and I just didn't want to listen to him at that time. So it was such a beautiful thing when coronavirus hit. Like, I don't know how many people can say that. Like, still counseling, but coronavirus really put things into perspective for me. I got so much more time with our kids, and crafting and business has just continued to accelerate and just grow even in the midst of a pandemic, which is crazy. Like, I feel like that's another God indication, you know. And so what was it, about a month ago?
Yeah,
probably a month ago, I decided to resign from my school counseling job. And here I am sitting in our shop. So I don't know if you can see, you know, on the YouTube portion of this, but the backdrop is what we like to do. So Andrew builds, I paint, I design flowers. Everything in here just feels cozy and comfortable and beautiful. And truly, like, this is my happy place. I come here and I feel no stress. I just come and I feel like I'm the best form of myself, and I'm happy and I'm rested and I'm not stressed. And even though I just gave up my full-time job or part-time job, whatever, at this point, I trust. And it took me a really long time to get here and to jump, but I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, it did. It took a long time. And you touched on the like actual physical ailments that you were coming down with because of the stress in the job. And as your sister, it was hard to watch that because it felt like it was killing you in a way. It was just destroying your health. And there were years where it was like you were just chronically sick because of the stress. And I mean, people don't realize that if you wake up every single day and you are miserable or unhappy and you're living with such dread or stress or anxiety and just all of these negative and scary emotions, it will take a toll on you physically. And so many people find themselves in careers every single day and they just don't think that they have any options. And they also, they're also so worried about what people will think. And I know that's something you had to overcome.
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. It's like, okay, here I am with all these degrees and a very stable and I would say a respected career in the community. And I was at an awesome school district, and really it's like the dream school counseling job if you're in the profession. And I truly appreciated that, but it took its toll. Like Nicole said, you know, you spend most of your waking hours in your job,
Mm-hmm.
whether you like to think about that or not. You wake up and you go to work and you come home and you eat dinner and you put kids to bed and you go to sleep and repeat. So if you're not satisfied in your occupation, it's going to take its toll, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's such a stressful occupation, the physical ramifications are real.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you that. Like, I found myself in the cycle where I would rest up and recharge in the summer, be happy, ready to go into the school year, energized, and about partway through fall semester, I would start to feel it. By about Christmas time in January, I would start to get sick, and I would be sick the entire spring semester with so many different ailments and everything that was going on. I mean, the way that I am, I would still go to work. I didn't call off. I don't use sick days. Like, that's not who I am. That's not my work ethic. Mm-hmm. And that would just make it worse. Like, I wouldn't take time to take care of myself because I couldn't call off. And I felt like those kids needed someone so badly that I wouldn't let them down. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of snowballed every single year. And Nicole would tell me, she knew the cycle and the seasons that I would go through, which is telling.
Yeah. Watching it year after year and everything. So how did you hold on to hope during those hard seasons? Like, was it just pushing through, or where was God in that season? Were you returning to him, or is that something that you developed later on as you continued working? How did you get up every day and keep going?
That's a really good question. So I wish I could sit here and say, like, it was God and he kept pushing me through. But so my faith story in a nutshell, I mean, I grew up, Nicole, you've heard Nicole's story. So follow Nicole's story. You know about our home life. We were raised in a Catholic home. I went to a Catholic college, and that was a really big part of my life. But then after college, we came back home, and I didn't really find a church that I was connected to. So I feel like for a couple years there, especially when I was in my occupational journey, that I took a break. I mean, I would pray. I still believed. I've always prayed. I've always believed. So that has never taken a break. But I haven't had the faith that I do now. So honestly, I mean, this girl right next to me changed my life in the most beautiful way when she invited me to the chapel. And that's been 6 years or 7 years ago now. She changed my life by saying, come with me, try it out. It's going to be so different. I don't know if you're going to like it. I think she was probably nervous at one point, but it clicked, and it was such a beautiful thing. So in that hard season, it was just my work ethic. I got to go to work. That's what was taught to me. That's what my dad and my mom and my grandpa and our family, we're going to work and we're not calling off. That's not what we do. And that's just kind of what got me out of bed every day. I would pray. I'd pray for these kids, but it wasn't until a little bit later on that I've really leaned into my faith. And that plays into this whole thing, the whole big picture.
I mean, you said you kept feeling signs from God, and you kept feeling those nudges and that push. And there probably wasn't anything more than feeling that peace, like you said, during a pandemic. And when everybody else is on pins and needles and not knowing what's going on with their business, you have this sense of peace just to trust God and to go all in with your business. Do you have any other examples of those other signs that you kind of felt along the way that God was pushing you, that you were ignoring?
Well, I think I had them all through my life. So like I said, I've always believed, but it was just a little bit more silent during some of those years. And not that God was silent, but I don't think that I was listening as acutely as I should have been. So I just feel like, okay, I'm taking an art class because I have to in college, not because, I wanted to at that point, because everything was prescribed for me. So I take that, and then this teacher pulls me aside and has this most beautiful conversation with me. And it was so genuine, and I don't know. And looking back on it now, I just feel like that was a God moment. Hey, I'm trying to tell you something. You are in this major for the wrong reason. You're not enjoying where you are. You have to take this class with this certain professor, and you're really going to click with them, and they're going to try to give you some wisdom and some advice and a nugget, and speak my voice for me. And I didn't hear it. Because it
Yeah.
wasn't along what I wanted it to be. So that was one of the things. I think that it was another God moment that I had to take a break from college to put Andrew through school. I think that was another time God was telling me, like, really evaluate who you are, what you want to do, work this job, get through and figure it out. But I didn't put in the work at that time. Like, I worked, I supported us as a family, but I did not look and see who I was, work on self-development, really kind of figure out who I was and what I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that was another hint from God that I should be taking that time, and I ignored it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say that, but I did.
I think we all I think we've all done that in times in our life. And then it's almost like when we hit that rock bottom and we're like, okay, there has to be more in life than this.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we start looking at those signs a little bit more. I mean, for myself, at least. It's
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, with Old Soul, I think that was when God was most pronounced and the loudest in my life, because we would do these craft shows and Andrew and I, clicked on such a level where we were able to do this together, and it was really healthy for our marriage. And just the words of affirmation from everybody who would come through. And we have a lot of faith-filled products, so we're able to, bless others and have pieces in their home that just remind them of who God is, and different verses. And just those daily religious reminders are all incorporated in our business. But people would come through and reaffirm and tell us, like, you should do this, and your stuff is awesome, and do you have a store, and just really pushing me in that way. And I think everybody struggles with self-confidence and believing in themselves and feeling like an imposter. And it took a lot of time and a lot of people, vocalizing those words of affirmation before we actually believed it. So how this brick and mortar came about was kind of like a God moment for me too. So we had so many people coming to our home to pick up orders and stuff. And we just started to talk about a brick and mortar. And in our little village here, a tiny, tiny little village with like 2 stoplights. It's just cute and cozy and wonderful. Mm-hmm. But this little place came available for rent. And Andrew, my like practical, stable, steadfast husband, was like, we should look into it. Why not? Like, let's just do it. And that like was a huge push, because that is so out of Andrew's character. And he knew it was something that was kind of festering in a dream of mine, and he supported it and pushed me. I wouldn't have done it on my own. I wouldn't have. So thank God for him. And I think that's another way God was talking, because truly, I cannot express, that's so out of Andrew's character to want to take that jump. And we signed up, and here we are, and it just continues to be amazing. If God doesn't shut those doors, then maybe you don't move on. So thank God he shut certain doors for me and opened others. And there's people around me who reminded me and nudged me. I mean, my sister, she nudged me into the right place for faith. And I have so many wonderful and supportive people that if they weren't there, maybe I wouldn't be here. And that's interesting to think about. Like, not physically here in this space, this current state of my life.
And there are those nudges, and you just know. I think sometimes if you ignore things to the point, God will get your attention. And if you find yourself like just saying, no, not now, that's not part of the plan, like it gets to the point where I feel like he gives you a wake up call. And I think just finding yourself sick and finding yourself stressed to the max and everything, that could have been that wake up call. Like he had to get your attention in another way, not only just the weight of the job, but now that it was taking a physical toll on you and everything. And you've always had like the best work ethic ever. I don't think there's ever been a job that, I'm not just saying this because she's my sister, but there's never been a job where she hasn't been like the star employee, like top sales, top reports. Like no job has ever wanted to see you go. So a little bit about your work ethic. Like what makes a good employee? What sets you apart from other people?
Well, I think it's actually a fatal flaw. A big part of my personality is I have perfectionism so bad. It's part of my work ethic, but if I'm going to do something, I'm going to absolutely do it the right way and with 100% of my effort. I did that in school. I remember being in like middle school, and our parents didn't put a lot of academic pressure on us,
Right.
but I would come home from school and I would be that kid that, even though our parents didn't tell us to, I would sit down and I would study and work and do homework and everything all night long. Like no breaks, maybe to eat dinner. Like I would sit there and study and study and study and perfect and just kind of do that on my own. Nobody forced me to. It was just who I was. Continued through high school, continued through college. I mean, I was going through a major that I didn't even like. I can't even explain that. Like a biology pre-med major, and graduated with, top honors. And then I went to a master's program and graduated with a 4.0. Like that's just who I am. Like I work and I work and I work and I work and I work.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that was instilled in us as kids. I think you're very similar too. Like you have such a great work ethic, and we don't want to let people down. And we really feel a sense of loyalty to wherever we are.
I think that's a big thing a lot of people lack, is that loyalty. Nothing bothers me more than when you go to a job and people are, one, bad talking about the employer, or two, slacking off and not doing their work while they're there.
That's very true. I've always been one of those people that will just put my head down and work. Like I don't normally take lunch breaks, and I can't even explain it. I'll put in more hours when I have to than when I'm actually compensated for. But it's just
by being compensated for is that she will not report her hours because it would make her go over what her allotted hours are and then not be paid. And you just do it because the job's not done to the level and standard that you want it done. And then you would just complete it anyways. And there's so many people who are like ready to clock out 30 minutes before, and they're, not even paying attention to what they're supposed to be doing, and they're ready to go home, but you're staying 2 and 3 hours after the shift.
And that was every job.
Every job. Yes, every job.
I counted school as a job. That was like at the hardware store I worked at. That was the pool store. That was the job that I did between colleges. Like every school counseling job, it's kind of a fatal flaw. I will say that there is definitely a balance there. You need to take care of yourself while you're trying to pursue all your occupational goals. But I don't know, that's just me.
Yeah.
I know I see myself doing it here, but the difference is this is good for my soul, and it's not stressful or exhausting. It's therapeutic. I paint and I pray, and I have never felt closer to God than I do now, because I trust in him that, this is a huge change in our life. I just gave up a stable job, a good job. And now I'm doing this, and I'm fully trusting in him, and I have never felt this sense of peace. It's unexplainable. Like I'm not stressed. I just trust he'll take care of it.
So many people, even in the last interview that I did, people reference this sense of peace, and it's so it is unexplainable, and it makes you can't put it into words about what you feel, but you just know when you know. But there were a lot of people out there that didn't see the vision, that didn't take it seriously. You encountered that quite a bit. So
delayed it. Thank God, he's faithful, and that we have him, because he's persistent and he continues to pursue us and just doesn't give up on us. He's that good father that just says, you haven't figured it out yet, but I'm going to stand with you, and I'm going to speak in another way. And maybe as you get older, or different experiences, or whatever it is, the timeline, it's going to click. And, when it does, you feel it. There were so many people that were like, don't open a brick and mortar. Don't do this. Don't do that. Like, what are you doing? And just trying to plant those seeds of doubt. And I really had to push through that and deal with that. I'm sure in another episode we'll talk about, workplace environment and how that stemmed all the way back to school, in self-confidence and people really having an impact on what you think of yourself, right? So I had to fight through that when people were telling me, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And questioning everything. I had to really put in my mind why I was doing this and which way we're going and what's best for my family. Because if you listen to everybody outside of your circle, they, most people don't have your best interests in mind. They have their interests in mind. So you really have to think about who is feeding into your life and the voices and why and what their motivations are. And just really clarifying and listening to God, but then also listening to those few people, like less than 5 people that are your closest, that know you the best, because they're going to give you the advice that is best for you and not just for their personal gain.
Right. And I think that's probably why you receive such peace is
Mhm.
because if God wasn't giving you that peace and these people were trying to plant those seeds of doubt, it could have been, you could have been a little bit more unstable, but because God rooted you in that peace and people were still trying to make your decisions unstable and to put doubt in your mind. But God, I think he gave you that peace for a reason, to get you through a lot of that.
He did.
Yeah.
And, I look back on it. That's part of the beauty of the story, is that if he didn't give me those, those roots or that firm foundation, again, I don't know that I would be here, because people's voices are so loud and they're in your daily life, right? So God whispers a lot of times, and the people around you can really drown that out. And they're so much more present in your face, right? So that seems to kind of go to the top of your mind. But I think that was one of the things. God knows who I am. Like I said, he's the Father, and he looks at our personalities, and he knows what we all need to get where we need to go. So he gave me such firm roots and foundation, and knew that, when the time was right, I would be able to do that because of him.
What advice would you give a younger version of yourself?
Well, that's a really good question. Number one, if we're going to look at this just from an occupational standpoint, I would say think back about what you were doing when you were younger, when you had like no voices around you telling you what to do or what to play or what to dream. You didn't have the societal pressures of this is what you should do, right? This is what would be best for you. Like, you just play and you be, and you're in your most pure state, right? So I firmly believe that if you look back on that, like, you're going to get hints of who you should be and where you should be. I mean, look at Nicole. She's always been a talker and a hope filler and love and building people up. And, she's went full circle, and here she is. And just looking at that, right? Like, we don't have to fit somebody else's mold. Just kind of see what you're good at, what you enjoy. Another thing would be take time to figure out who you are. Don't get stuck in the rat race. Don't, wish days away. I would say that's a huge thing for me. I didn't even mention this earlier, but I found myself in so many phases of my life that I would be like, okay, wait until this exam is over or this semester is over, and then you'll be happy. Or wait until you get through this season of this job, and then you'll be happy. And you shouldn't wish life away. It's so beautiful. And I think that should be a signal for you. If you're wishing your time on this earth away, why? Like, you really need to evaluate and stop yourself in that moment and say, there is a problem. And I did that for a really long time. So if I were to go back on my younger self, I would say, pay attention, slow down, figure out who you are. Don't let your faith get not fuzzy, but faded. Does that make sense? And if you lean into him, he'll eventually get you where you need to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was fire. That was gold right there. What you said about if you are wishing days of your life away, if you are just saying, setting a milestone, and if I get to this, then everything will be better. And you're not getting up every day and living with that intention and being excited. That should be a wake-up call right there. And I know that there are so many people who dread Monday mornings, but I think we are the rare exception that are excited for Monday mornings now. And that's not always been the case for either of us either. It's been a journey. We went from seasons of hurting to now having hope in our occupation and in many areas of life. But so many people wake up with or get those Sunday night blues. I mean, and here, we're actually recording this on a Sunday night, which is funny that I mentioned that. But
that is funny.
So many people are at home laying in bed, scrolling social media, dreading the whole week, comparing their lives.
Yeah.
And
or for me, it would be that like the nervous jitters.
Yeah.
In your belly, like the Sunday blues, nervous jitters, whatever you want to call it, because I didn't know what the kids were going to need or what crisis or emergency or what. And I would just start to try to prepare myself and I wouldn't sleep. So you really have to pay attention to your body as well, because you'll get those clues.
Yeah.
If you're sick reoccurrently in cycles and your sister is telling you that this is happening and pointing it out to you, and your mom and your husband and everybody are worried about you, wake up. Something's not right.
Something's not right. So another question that I have for you is, if you owned a billboard and you could write anything on it, what would it say?
I would say trust that inner voice that you have to guide you. You know, you can call it your inner voice, your conscious, whatever you want to call it. You can call it, you know, what I believe your Holy Spirit that is directing you in your life, but trust that. I don't think that there's ever been a time in my life that that voice that I've heard or that gut feeling has ever led me wrong. So I would say trust.
That'd be great, because so many people don't trust. They feel like everything is left up to themselves. And I think a lot of it comes down to like maybe some control. So just a constant reminder of like right out there on the big board, just saying trust over and over.
Trust. And back to the question about being younger, don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Because that's part of life and you're going to learn so much about yourself through failure. And if you're somebody who, you know, is like a perfectionist, you're going to be held back. If you're afraid of failure, you're going to take the safer route, right? So don't be afraid of that, because those that matter still be around you, even if you do fail, and you might just, you know, find something beautiful and fly.
Absolutely. Has there been a Bible verse that has kind of been your anchor or your life verse that you can think of? Or maybe it's just the verse that's getting you through this season of a big transition. Do you have one that comes to mind that maybe will help people hold on to the hope?
Well, there's two. And, you know, Nicole will have to help me out with where they actually are in the Bible. But I just talk about, you know, being still. For a lot of time, you know, I was just running and running and running and running to the next destination, to the next season, to the next milestone, to whatever. And just being still and listening for that voice and genuinely, you know, leaning into those that are around you and that you love, and watching and just slowing down life. Right. So be still. And then also, it's interesting. We're going through this right now in our series at the chapel, but be the light. I have always, you know, that verse really touches me, because I really, truly, and genuinely try to live my life for the betterment of others. I have a tattoo, you know, it's about being your light, and I live to let you shine. And, you know, that's God. And I want him to shine in my life through my interactions with other people and what I do, and hopefully the blessings that I can give. And, but then I also relate that to other people. Like, I want to lift you up and help other people shine, in my family and my kids, and just elevate them and just, I don't know, be the light. That those two, be still and be the light, have really anchored who I am and just kind of touched my soul for years and years and years.
Well, I know the let your light shine is in Matthew. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a Bible teacher, so we'll have to look up the other one for sure. But I'm sitting here and I'm looking across the room, for those of you that can see the actual video that goes along with this audio. And there's two keychains right here on your stand in your shop that both say that. And I'm looking at them while you're mentioning it, and it's everywhere. And you put these verses on things that people put in their homes, and it just surrounds them. And I'm thinking, here are these two verses, and they're on these beautiful wooden keychains here, and people can carry that with them all the time. And you are giving people that gift of having that surrounding in so many different ways. I mean, everywhere you turn in this shop, there's something that's going to say like something about God, or something that shows the beauty, maybe in a natural wood. You know, God made the trees, and then you're taking that beautiful resource and turning it into something, and it just shines that beauty. And you are really good at pulling the light out of people. I think sometimes in life we get so beat down, and referencing, you know, the story in Matthew, we we hide our light and we put it underneath a cover so nobody can see it. And you are really good at exposing that. Even in some of the most at-risk youth and some of the kids that have some of the hardest upbringings and hardest stories, you were able to lift that cover and let them expose their light again. And that is a gift in you. So,
well, thank you. That's such a genuine compliment and something that touches my heart, because I really try to do that and just be there for whoever needs it in that moment, and lift them up in prayer and do what I can on this earth just to let them know that there is a God. And to believe in him.
Absolutely. So I can see why those are your verses there. I get to come to your shop all the time. We live really close by each other. We see each other quite often, usually daily, sometimes every other day, and we talk daily. So I get to see your shop. I get to see all of your creation. I get to see all of the beauty. I get to hear all of your beautiful, heartfelt, wrote out posts. I mean, if you guys enjoyed the reading at the beginning of this message, you will enjoy reading all of the posts on Old Soul's platform and everything. So where can people connect with you? Where can they read these beautiful messages that you share?
Okay, so our most active social platform is Facebook, and our business name is Old Soul Woodworking. So if you look up Old Soul Woodworking, you will see our little shop come up here in Monroeville. And I don't just view social media as a selling platform. Like, I think there's so much beauty in connecting with people in that way, and social media is actually supposed to be social. So if somebody comments something, you can comment back, or you can message them, and just, if somebody's going through a hard time, pray for them, lift them up, and truly mean it. Just don't say prayers or the prayers emoji, but actually lift them up and be social. So that's us, Old Soul Woodworking on Facebook. And then also we're working on our website relaunch. So some of our gifts can kind of go outside of our little 40-mile radius, because there has been some, it's interesting. There's been some demand for that, and it's just so cool how a mustard seed can start and just see how it just kind of grows. But our website that we're working on is oldsoulwoodwork.com, and it's not active yet, but really soon. And there's more of our stories on there. And you just kind of get to know us as people.
And I think that's the most important thing, is that they put the personality behind the business, and you can tell that your heart is in the business. And I'm so glad just to even be sitting here and this dream come true. It is a dream come true. And just watching your story evolve and really just seeing you go from hurt to hope.
So. Absolutely. And Bloom, she's got to see the whole process. So don't ignore that gut. Don't ignore those feelings, because they're telling you something. And if you trust in him, he will lead you where you need to be.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. And we will have you on again, because you are just full of wisdom. And I know there's so many other areas that you can help people, find encouragement in. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you for checking out this episode, and we will see you again next time.